Hi guys, my name is Marcin and this video is the first video of the series of Bobby Fischer games. I want to analyze and explain in detail all games ever played by Bobby Fischer. Robert James Fischer was born in 1943 in Chicago. He was one of the strongest chess players in the history, and also he was a very interesting, charismatic person. This game was played in 1955 in Lake Mohegan. Bobby's opponent was Mr. Albert Humphrey, about whom I don't know much. Well, I know that he was college chess champion in Virginia, but that's basically all I know about this player. Fischer was 12 years old when he played this game, and he played with the black pieces. So his opponent played d4, Bobby replied with knight f6, and Mr. Humphrey played c4, so he's fighting for the center, and g6 by Fischer and knight to c3 to play e4. This is very typical. Bishop g7, knight to f3, developing the piece, castling, and now e4. So white took the center, and in some lines he might want to play. He wants to play e5 at some point. It's not very clear if it's good, but it's an option. So Bobby played d6 to stop e5, and Mr. Humphrey played h3, probably just to not allow bishop to g4. Nowadays this system is called Makhaganov system, and it's played by some very strong players. If you want to know more about it, you should study games of Michał Krasenkov, very strong Polish grandmaster who was once 2700 player. And nowadays this h3 move is played with the idea of g4 and bishop to g5. Knight d7 was played by black. c5 here leads to Benoni defense after d5, a6, bishop d3, takes. Now this structure is Benoni structure is very complicated, and this opening is not very popular nowadays, but it's very interesting. It was also played by Fischer, by the way. So h3, knight bd7, bishop e3, normal developing move. So now knight to g4 is impossible because h3 was played. And Bobby decided to play e5 here. Now he can play c5 also in this possible. This is possible, but now white should play d5. And now we have positions which are similar to Benoni position, but black knight on d7 is not very well placed. Also the bishop on c8 is not a very good piece. If instead of d5, which is probably the best in this position, d takes c5, black can take on c5 with the knight, and he's not worse here. So, well, instead of c5, Bobby played e5. He played this position, well, similar positions many times in his career. He was a very good King's Indian player, and probably only Gary Kasparov was better King's Indian player than Fischer was. They were very good players when they played King's Indian. Well, they were good players in general, but in King's Indian they were experts. Now, d5 was played by Mr. Humphrey. If instead white would play bishop to e2, then e takes d4, knight takes d4, rook e8, putting pressure on the e4. So now f3. Black has typical maneuver of knight to h5, with the idea of knight to g3. This is a threat. And also sometimes queen to h4. And for instance, if bishop takes f2, this looks logical, but it's not very good because of bishop to e5, and black can control all of important dark squares in white's camp. So bishop f2 is not very good. But if instead queen to d2, then knight to g3, attacking the bishop and the rook is also very good, and black can always take the bishop, and he will have a bishop pair. So black is better here also. So bishop e2 maybe was not the best. d5 was played in the game, and now Bobby played a5. This move is played to prevent b4 and c5. This is normal plan for white in such structures, to play b4 and c5, and black should play f5. So a5 to control the b4 square, bishop e2 to develop the piece, and now both sides should play for different plans. Black should play knight to e8 or knight to h5 and push for f5 to attack white's king. White should play at some point a3 and b4 and then c5 to break on the queen side and to try to put the pieces into black's camp by maneuvering on the queen side and opening the position by c5. So bishop e2, and now b6 was played, and this is actually not a very good move in King's Indian defense, and the reason is that, well, black wanted to control c5, this is clear, but well, white cannot play c5 now, but in the process some white squares in black's camp were weakened, so maybe this is not the best move. Maybe immediate knight to h5 or knight to e8 with f5 was better. So castling by white, and Bobby played knight to e8 with the intention of f5 and kingside attack. This is very scary if you want to play this position as white. This is pretty much scary. Okay. Well, knight e8 was played, but knight to h5, like I said before, was also possible. It was an alternative, and black should be also okay. He can play f5 and knight to f4, and he's okay. But knight to e8, queen to c2. Now, I don't like this move. Remember that plan in chess is always in some way related to the pawn structure. So a3 was more in the spirit of the position, so white is playing on the queen side here, and black's on the king side here. So a3 to play b4 and then c5. Black should respond with f5, and white can play b4. And now with f4, which looks good for black, black is trying to push the pawns to mate white's king. Bishop to d2 and g5, this is normal. This is normal play in King's Indian. Then quiet rook to e1. And black cannot achieve much. For instance, if he would play g4, a pawn sacrifice, then just h takes g4, and white is better because it's not easy to generate any counterplay against white king. If instead of g4, which is just losing a pawn, h5 to play g4 next, then white has a very good move, knight to h2, and this pawn here on h5 is very, very weak, and black cannot actually construct any attack here. So h3 with the plan of b4 was normal. Queen c2 was played instead. Bobby played knight to c5 to put the knight on the better position, more active position, and also to open this bishop. And now knight to h2. This move is also strange, because on f3 knight is pretty active, and on h2 is not active at all. As I said previously, white should still play a3 and b4. Knight h2 is not doing very much. Okay, f5, so black is playing normally. f3, well, if e takes f5, then after g takes f5, this is also very good for black. He can play king to h8, rook to g8, and attack on the half-open g-file. Still, knight to g2 is out of play. So instead of g takes f5, f3 was played. Bobby played f4. Now bishop to f2, and here very strong queen to g5. So there is a threat of bishop takes h3 because king, well, pawn cannot take this bishop, right? So king to h1 is actually forced. And now we can summarize the position. So we see that black made progress. He played his plan with f4, f5 and f4, and his pieces are staring at the white's king, and they are trying to give him mate, and white cannot play any pawn break here actually. He was too slow. He didn't play a3 and b4, and he actually stayed without plan. This is a very dangerous position when you don't have plan. So it's not like losing in one move, but strategically white is busted actually here. So black played bishop to d7 just to develop the bishop, and you know, he can try to connect the rooks. Rooks are working very well when they are connected. So rook to g1 to protect the king, and now knight to f6. Another piece is going to support the attack. d4. Now this move is really bad, really bad. Why? Because in chess we have a rule which states that you should not play where your opponent is stronger, right? So black is stronger here. Black is attacking on the king side, and white is just helping him, but letting him to open the position of white's king. So he should not play this. He should try to generate some counterplay here. He played g4, and also this h3 pawn is becoming weak. Just look at it. F takes g3. The pawn is weak. Now, obviously, white cannot take here with the bishop because of this, and he just lost the pawn. So he took with the rook to protect the pawn, but this pawn is very, very weak. This is chronically weak pawn. Queen to h6, and now black can take on h3 actually whatever he wants to. So, but instead he's going for an attack. So knight to d1. Sometimes this knight can go to a3, or sometimes this bishop can go to to e3, or this bishop to e3, harassing the queen. So knight to h5, attacking the rook, attacking the pawn. Rook to g1 and bishop takes h3. So black took a pawn, and he has some great pieces attacking white's king. Black should win this game actually, I think. So bishop e3 just to harass the queen, but knight to f4 is a very good reply, bringing knight to a better position. Remember, knight on the rim is dim. Now you can see how many squares black is controlling. A lot of squares, and those squares are around white's king. So knight to f2, trying to remove the bishop from h3, but black is just ignoring this, and bishop to f6 is bringing another piece into attack. Rook to g3. Now he's attacking 2 times, so black is moving to d7, keeping the bishop. Well, this bishop is important because it can control this h3 square. So knight f to g4. Bishop took it. White took back. Well, black took it. White took back, and queen to g7. Well, in this position, actually, prophylactic rook to f7 was an interesting alternative. Rook on f7 is protecting the king and the c7 square, but it can also be an attacking piece on g7, right? So, well, queen to g7 was played instead. Rook h to g1, and bishop to e7 was played by Bobby, just to guard the knight. There is an alternative also here. King h8 is safe here, very safe. Black is stepping aside with his king, and white does not have enough compensation. Bishop e7 was played instead, and queen to d2, rook to e7, rook to g3, and rook a to f8. Now white took on f4. This knight is very powerful, so he took on f4. Rook takes f4, and white played rook to h3. Rook takes f4 is worse, because after e takes f4, rook g2, g5, with next h5 and bishop to f6 to e5, black is dominating. He's actually dominating. So rook to h3 was played, queen to f7, rook g to g3, and Bobby played bishop to h4. Now, black should exchange rooks here. Rook to h4. Rook takes h4. and bishop takes, and if rook to g2, let's say, then queen to f4 with winning position. Black h7 pawn is a very strong pawn. You know, in the end game it's actually a winning pawn, so this is winning. Instead of this, Bobby played bishop to h4, attacking the rook g4, and now he should probably take on g4. For instance, f takes g4, knight takes e4. Well, queen is attacked, so queen to e3, and knight to f2 check is winning. Well, instead of rook takes g4 here, I'm sorry, Bobby played bishop to f2, and Mr. Humphrey played bishop to d1, and he proposed a draw, and Bobby took a draw. And actually, this position is actually still win one for black. But remember, Bobby was 12 years old. He was not experienced. 2 years later, he was one of the strongest players, not only in the States but probably in the world. He was a very strong player at the age of 14. But when he was 12, he was not as experienced, and he took a draw. He should, in this position, he should play bishop to d4, and this bishop is just totally dominating the board, and black is actually winning in many ways. But just compare the bishops. This bishop is just absolute monster. So black should play this, and he should have won. But it was a draw in this position. Actually. Okay, so this is just the first video of the series. I would post each and every week at least one video with analysis of Bobby games. I want to analyze all of his games, so like 1000 games, and yeah. So just subscribe to my channel and check my Facebook fan page. You can also contact me via Facebook, let's say, if you want to talk about chess history, or if you have interesting analysis, and if you want to share with me. You can also contact me if you want to improve your chess, because I'm also a chess teacher. I'm a player rated about 2150, and I had some success as a coach. Some of my players, my students, they became quite strong players. One of them, he's actually FIDE master with 23 something. I don't remember his exact rating, but he's a pretty strong player. So if you want to improve your game, you can also contact me. Prices are reasonable and much lower than, let's say, in the United States. So yeah. So thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, and have a nice time playing chess.